Okay, so here we are with another Masterverse unboxing, and this is new Eternia Zodac. And we all know Zodac is one of my favorite Masters of the Universe characters. He's one I've always thought was really cool. He had like what to me in the 80s looked like a very retro 1930s sci-fi look. He could fit in with Flash Gordon characters, I think, if you put him next to those. I might take a picture of him next to some of my Flash Gordon action figures and see how that looks. I think that might be interesting to see. Of course, I've mentioned before how I feel like Flash Gordon was something that was always like a big influence on Masters of the Universe. Obviously, Frank Frazetta and his Conan stuff mostly, but some of his John Carter stuff too, I think was probably like the biggest influence on the aesthetic of Masters of the Universe. And then you had other influences like, Jack Kirby and, I think some Wally Wood in there and definitely some Alex Raymond, definitely some Flash Gordon. To me, it's no coincidence that a couple of years prior to Masters of the Universe, Mattel had actually done a line of Flash Gordon figures based on the Filmation cartoon. And wouldn't you know, one of the characters in that line was named Beast Man. So let's go ahead and open them up. Well, I'm going to cut the tape at the top anyway. I still want to talk a little bit more about the packaging for this figure because it does have some nice artwork on there. There's a nice portrait of Zodac and a full figure of him. And then here's another picture of him on the back. We got the cross-cell artwork with the Netflix He-Man and Skeletor, which I've never seen at retail, and I don't really have any interest in those anyway. So don't expect me to do a review on those. I just don't have any interest in from that Netflix series. They're too big and chunky, and they don't have like the sort of grittiness. If they had done maybe some realistic versions of these designs, like if they were proportioned and detailed like a regular Masterverse figure, like what these guys would look like in real life, then I might be interested in buying them. But they just look like the same cheap, crappy toys that are made for kids that they've been putting on. I know all toys are made for kids, like at least ideally, but whatever. So, I forgot to read the bio. And you notice it says Zodac, Cosmic Enforcer. It does not say evil Cosmic Enforcer, as the 80s action figure said. It does not say heroic Cosmic Enforcer, as you might have expected it to be if you were familiar with the character as he appeared on the Filmation cartoon of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. No. Our boy is neutral. He is above such petty human concerns as good and evil. He is merely interested in the cosmic balance. So here is the bio. Masters of the Universe, New Eternia, original designs inspired by classic concepts. Zodac, Cosmic Enforcer. Few are more powerful than the omnipotent master of the cosmos, Zodac. As keeper of the neutral balance between good and evil, hey, I just said that. The Cosmic Enforcer's universal travels return him to Eternia, home of Castle Grayskull, the nexus of realities, and the center of the multiverse. For a threat to the cosmic balance can come at any time, anywhere. Actually, it says anywhere at any time. I got it mixed up. Curse my Dexia. Anyway, it does also, if you look in the background here, you can see He-Man fighting Skeletor. And it is indeed the new Eternia versions, the Viking He-Man and the Barbarian Skeletor. As I don't know if those were actually, I don't think they were actually literal names. I have the Skeletor package right here. It doesn't say he's a Barbarian Skeletor, but that's, I've heard, that's what he's called in the fandom. It might have been a working title for the figure. I don't know. So let's go ahead and pull out his accessories. So, of course, we have the standard Zodac ray pistol. And those familiar with the original Zodac blaster will recognize that the fins on the barrel, they're a little more pointy and angular than they are often depicted. And he comes with another weapon, which is this battle staff, which the original Zodac with a C did not come with, but the 2000X Zodac with a K did. So go ahead and put those together. Now, kind of tight fit. It's got like a little lip on the peg, I guess, to make sure it holds in place. But he can separate those into two separate weapons if he so chooses. So they did a race swap on Zodac and changed the spelling of his name so that it was spelled with a K instead of with a C. So when they were doing Masters of the Universe Classics, I believe that Scott Knightlick was the guy who implemented this policy because he was of the opinion that the more characters, the better. So if there were two different versions of the same character, you know, like say the green goddess, who was the original version of the sorceress, he split them into two characters if they were different enough. So yeah, if you have a character that like looks nothing like the other version of the character, like the green goddess version of the sorceress looked nothing like the Filmation version of the sorceress, and she was definitely different enough that they could make those two separate characters, no problem. But you do have two characters now named Zodac. One is Zodac with a C and one is Zodac with a K. Hello, Sean Franklin. Welcome to the show. So, and like I said, they made him into a black character for that version of it. So there was enough aesthetic difference, I think, since like, you know, at least it was two different ethnicities on the two different characters that you could kind of justify. Have you seen the Deadpool? No, I haven't seen that yet. I heard it was on the Super Bowl, but I didn't get a chance to watch the Super Bowl. So yeah, but I did hear about it, so hopefully I should be able to watch it soon. There are going to be some interesting things to say about this armor. I can tell that already. So yeah, it's probably also kind of why like I was thinking that like, you know, the Mike Young Productions version of King Grayskull and the Revelation version of King Grayskull could be two different characters. And it's not like you don't have kings having the same name. Like, you know, one is King Grayskull the first and one is King Grayskull the second. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide which one is the first and which one is the second. Like, you can decide that for your own Masterverse. So here is Zodac out of the package. I didn't comment on it at the time, and I meant to comment on it, is that I felt like the pose that Zodac was in was very similar to his pose on the back of the action figure package, so I thought that was pretty cool. So Zodac here is based very much on the original figure, and we can see that he has the so-called reptile arms and the so-called reptile feet, as they were called by the people who made the vintage line. He has some new innovations to his armor. For one thing, he's got these shoulder pads, and these shoulder pads actually are on little pegs that fit onto these clips on the back of his outfit. Now, this is something that I thought was kind of interesting, because you can remove these shoulder pads to go for a more vintage accurate look. So you can have Zodac without the shoulder pads. But one thing that is definitely a bonus when you take off the shoulder pads other than that is, hey, look at there. Now we got a place to store his staff. And if you break it into two parts, you can have both parts of the staff on there. Now, the skinny part of the staff is a little too skinny to fit in those clips, but the thicker part of the staff, that fits perfectly. So that's how I would suggest that you store that if you're going to store that on the figure like that. So, but the shoulder pads are kind of cool, and they do add like a little bit more of a unique look to Zodac, but they will interfere with the articulation somewhat. So, you know, you don't have to display them with those shoulder pads, though, and I don't think I will, because I would prefer him to have a little more articulation. And I like the fact that you can pose the staff on there. But I'm probably going to have him hold the staff in one hand and hold the ray gun in the other. Or maybe have him hold the staff in two hands and have him hold the ray gun on the holster, because he actually now has a holster to hold his ray gun. So let's go ahead and try to click that in there. And there we go. Fits on there very nicely. So let's go ahead and pull that back off, and we can put that into his hand. And there we go. There he is holding the ray gun. Head sculpt's very good. It looks very much like the original Zodac figure. A little more detailed, obviously, but it's got a lot of the same elements that one had. I do think that there's a little bit more room here for his nose to potentially fit in. The original Zodac figure always looked to me like it was a little too flat in the front to fit a nose underneath. So I kind of figured maybe he had some kind of like alien face where he didn't really have like a human shaped nose. So, but yeah. Also, this holster is a separate piece. So if you're somebody who really wants a vintage look for your Zodac and doesn't want any of this fancy new stuff, you can remove the holster. And there we go. This is 99% a classic vintage version of Zodac. The only thing that's really different is that little fabric panel on his loincloth. Do you think Halle Berry and James Marsden and Halle Berry in Deadpool and Wolverine? Well, I would hope so. It would seem like you would want to get as many X-Men characters in there as you can. It would be nice if they had some cameos in there of some of the other X-Men characters. I'd heard rumors about Halle Berry being in the MCU in some capacity, and to me, that's the thing that makes the most sense. I would, if I was Disney, if I was Kevin Feige, if I was anybody that had any say in the production of those movies, like basically how I would present that movie would be kind of a last hurrah for the Fox versions of the characters. And, you might see, I would probably want to have Hugh Jackman in there as much as he wants to. Same with Halle Berry. Find some way to stick her in there and, let her play Storm whenever she wanted to. And they've got a multiverse thing going on, so they could do that, even if they want to have their own Storm and their own Wolverine in the MCU proper. But yeah, like to me, it would still be the sort of thing where like I'd be presenting that as like kind of one last ride for the Fox universe, and then really anything after that might be some cameos or something like that. Unless I came up with a better idea later. That's how I would play that, I think. So, but yeah, I suspect that we'll probably see a lot of different Fox Marvel characters making some cameos in there. I'd seen what was supposedly behind the scenes footage of Michael Chiklis in a Thing costume. So he might be coming back as Ben Grimm even. So it might have been like Photoshop or something like that. But it looked to me like it was the real Michael Chiklis, and he was in like at least the torso of a Thing costume and looked like he had some motion capture stuff on his forearms and like a headband kind of thing. So if that is the case, they're probably planning on doing the Thing mostly in CGI, and I would imagine even the breastplate that he was wearing, the Thing torso piece, was probably just more for like lighting reference and stuff like that. So anyway, getting back to the figure, because I'm sure some people are talking about the figure. I should probably talk about X-Men all day, but I should probably for a little bit talk about the figure. So yeah. Well, once I'll put the holster back on him because I think the holster is one of the better innovations. I'm definitely gonna leave the holster on him. I'm probably not gonna leave the shoulder pads on there. They're nice. It's cool to have it as a display option, but there's just too much practicality to not having the shoulder pieces on there. Not just for the storage of the weapon, which I like. I like having a place to store the weapon. You can even just have it stuck to his back like that. You don't even necessarily have to take it apart, but you could have it sling it over his back like that. But let's go ahead. I'm going to take the gun and put it back in the holster, and then we'll talk about his articulation for a little bit. So his head can look up about that far. Not the best range of motion, but certainly not the worst. At least he can look up somewhat. He can look down about that far. So there's a really good range of motion for him to look down. And of course, the head can rotate all the way around. It can tilt from side to side, kind of quizzically, like he's perplexed. So that's nice. He does have the typical Masterverse torso articulation there. And you can turn him at the waist, but mine seems to be a little gummy. And besides, you can't turn him at the waist too much because then you're going to disrupt this where the holster attaches to the belt. And in fact, I just popped the whole thing loose again, so I'm going to have to pop it back in. So there we go. Hopefully that won't come loose again. Arms rotate all the way around the shoulder. They go down about that far, so about as far as you would really need them to. They go up about that far. So pretty good range of motion on the shoulders. Of course, got a bicep swivel, so the bicep rotates all the way around. You got double jointed elbows. These are probably the same elbows that we have on Skeletor, since I do believe that the new Eternia Skeletor, yeah, he also has them. I'm going to put a head on him. I popped his head off because I was experimenting with a thread that I 3D, or a head that I 3D printed. And I'll put that thing. Well, I had all the stuff sitting in this tray, and the tray got knocked over. I was going to put the Barbarian head back on him, but I guess since I don't know where that is right now, I'll just put the traditional Skeletor head on him. So that way we don't have a decapitated Skeletor. But the hands are the same as the ones that come with Skeletor. The forearms are the same as the ones that come with Skeletor. The legs, the feet are not the same, because this one has the feet and shins that are more based on the Alfredo Alcala artwork. And this one has the ones that are based on the toy. So maybe they can do a more vintage toy accurate Skeletor at some point. I think they actually did do one that was like a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, but I'm not entirely sure. Now, let's go ahead and we're going to take off his armor, because I want to have a look at something real quick. I don't often take off the armor on this show. I usually just say, well, it's pretty standard. It just looks like what you imagine it usually looks like. But this one does have a separate torso piece than what we usually see. We can see that he has some chest hair molded onto his torso on the back as well. And this is accurate, again, to the vintage figure, who reused the torso of Beastman. So he had like a lot of hair sculpted onto his torso that most Masters of the Universe figures did not have. I think he's the only Caucasian humanoid figure that had chest hair. You know, at least that we know of. Maybe Man-at-Arms underneath his green bodysuit was had the carpet of virility, but I don't know for certain. So we'll go ahead and put him back together. Getting back to the articulation, legs move up about that far. They are, of course, somewhat hindered by the soft rubber plastic loincloth. It does afford a little bit of posability, but not as much as, you know, it would if it weren't on there at all. And of course, this one has the holster attached to the belt, so it can't move around quite as much. That might be a reason for somebody other than fidelity to the vintage look. That might be enough reason for somebody to not want to have the holster on there. But I like the holster. I think it's pretty cool. So I am going to leave it. But he can still like sit down. It just kind of pushes the holster down more towards the knee, a little bit over the knee. So, but if I were to feel like 3D printing a Zodac throne, and you can find Zodac thrones on Cults. There's a lot of them, at least a couple of them that I know of offhand. You could get one that's more made for a vintage figure and just kind of scale it up for Masterverse. It shouldn't be that hard. So, and of course he has the thigh cut, so the thigh rotates all the way around. He's got double jointed knees. That's about the range of articulation you get at the knee. He has boot cut, so the boot rotates all the way around, and then his ankle points down about that far, points up about that far. You know, I'm not sure. These might be the same feet that are on the Revelation Skeletor, but I don't have that handy to check right now. So I might have to dig about a storage later and do some comparison. Excuse me. It's almost time for my mid-afternoon nap. So yeah, I might have to dig that out later, and if I do, I'll take some pictures and put them up as a community post so you can see the how similar his feet are or aren't. I'm not sure if it's reuse of that mold or not. So then we have the staff, which I promised I would put them in the staff with two hands. So, and you can put it on the thicker part or on the thinner part. I think even if we have him grip with the thinner part, which will be a looser grip, that since he's got it with two hands, he should still hold it just fine. And voila, there he is with the staff, holding it with two hands. And like I said, that was the weapon that came with Zodac with a K in the 2000X line, and that was the one that was the black version. But if you have this version, you could probably very easily customize the black version of Zodac. Just get like a King Grayskull figure, and you can swap the parts around. Just put all the armor and the loincloth and the boots from that one onto King Grayskull. And then you might want to repaint the face so that the skin tone matches. But other than that, that's a pretty good way to make a 2000X Zodac, I think. If I can find another one of these for cheap, and I think at least last time I checked, they had King Grayskull for a good price on Amazon. I might just do that. That might be a fun little side project. So anyway, Zodac is a really cool figure. I'm really happy to have him. Now, of course, he's one that I already had the Classics version of him, and I was very happy with the Classics version, but I did not have the standard Classics version that was based on the vintage figure. I had the Toys R Us exclusive version that came in a 2-pack with Green Lantern, the Masters of the Universe Classics versus DC Universe Classics 2-packs that they did for Toys R Us. And I actually preferred that version of Zodac because I like him with the white gloves and the regular boots. So I was always kind of confused as to what the biology of Zodac was, since he did have a Caucasian skin tone, which would imply that he was like one of the human figures. But then he just had all the little weird things like the reptile hands and the reptile feet and the hairy chest. And yeah, obviously, some human beings do have a hairy chest, but not like they reused Beastman's chest, and it was Caucasian, so it's like it's not like he had like a different. It was like flesh-colored hair. It was just a whole weird thing, and I think that was kind of part of the appeal to me on Zodac. Honestly, was just kind of the mystery of the character, but yeah, I liked him with the white gloves because especially because when they drew on the back of the packaging, they drew his hands to look like gloves still, but they were just Caucasian skin colored. So I was always really confused: is he wearing gloves or not? I can't tell. So, but this one definitely harkens back to that original Zodac figure where he has those reptile arms. So you can imagine him, I guess, to be as human or inhuman as you like. Now, Zodac never appeared in any of the early mini comics. He was a late addition to like literally last minute addition to that first wave. Like he replaced the original version of the Sorceress that would have been the snake armor goddess version of the Sorceress if she had been released. They just thought there were too many girl characters in that first wave. So Zodac was one they kind of threw together at the last minute. So he never appeared in any of the mini comics. I think he appeared in some of the later ones, but he was never in the earliest ones. I think the only early mini comic appearance he had was not even a real mini comic. It was that book and record set that came with the Talon Fighter. He's in that for a little bit, and he works as an ally to He-Man in that. But the first appearance of Zodac that I was familiar with was in a Batman comic of all things, and it was not unique to this Batman comic. It was a preview comic that was in lots of DC comics that came out that month, but the one I had was Batman. Of course it was Batman. And in that one, it's a team up with Superman that would have taken place after the first team up that He-Man had with Superman in DC Comics Presents. And in that story, Zodac is trying to prevent He-Man from going into battle with it really is time for my nap. He was trying to prevent He-Man from going into battle with Skeletor because he thought it was like destined to be like He-Man's last battle or something like that. So it was pretty interesting to me to see a story with this guy who ostensibly was He-Man's ally, but was still fighting against He-Man because he was trying to help him. And it's the moral ambiguity of Zodac was something that I found really interesting. And I remember asking my mom, is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? And she was like, well, he's not really either. He's just kind of like, trying to maintain the cosmic balance. And that was something that intrigued me very much when I was a kid. So Zodac became one of my favorite characters. Now, of course, when he appeared on the Filmation cartoon, he was much more sort of like unambiguously a good guy. And he was definitely an ally to He-Man and the Sorceress and everything like that on that particular show. But I always retained in my head the idea of Zodac being this kind of being beyond our human understanding of good and evil, and he was somebody with a more nuanced view of how the universe worked, and that was something I always thought was really cool. And that's why I always liked Zodac, and he was always one of my favorite Masters of the Universe characters, even though he was not one who appeared all that often. Anyway, that's it for this episode. I got to take my nap because I'm ready to fall asleep now. But if you enjoyed it, please make sure that you like and subscribe. All this fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. I'm interested in what people have to say about Zodac. What were your memories of this character, and what did you think of him? And did you enjoy his appearances? Did you have fun playing with the Zodac action figure like I did? Did you try to come up with like moral conundrums and things for this guy to deal with, because he wasn't really like he was somebody who was just kind of on the cusp of being a good guy, but still kind of had his own motivations and things like that. I'd been having some thoughts about Zodac and how he might fit into my Masters of the Universe reality, and I've had some interesting ideas as to how that might work. So, but that's pretty much it for this episode. We will talk to you next time. Goodbye.